Good evening and welcome to another Mothman podcast. We are your number one source for sci-fi paranormal podcasts. Also be listening for podcasts from Moth and Flame. You'll be hearing about hypnotherapy and mediumship.
And also, please like and subscribe and comment on YouTube. Follow us on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Instagram, Twitter, and more. And you can find out a lot more about our services on mothmanpodcast.com.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another Mothman podcast. This is our second one for the year of 2020. So we're excited to be in a new place and bring you a whole bunch of new programs starting right now. Tonight we're excited. We've got a whole studio full of people. You want to go around and introduce yourself? Let's start off with old Bruce over here. Welcome back, Bruce.
Yeah, it's Bruce. I'm here. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Candace, and I'm here too.
And this is Amanda. And just by way of introduction, Candace and I were best friends in high school. So she also does some DJing from time to time, and she stopped in to be a guest on the podcast tonight.
That's
right. And be sure to listen to Candace on 96.3 on your radio dial. She has oldie goldies, my kind of music.
That's right.
You know, just before we shut down for the holidays, good old Bruce here goes out on this buying spree, and he's researching all kind of little odds and ends that have a haunted history. I think he was going to open up a museum. I don't know. He might have changed his mind now.
No, I'm still going to do it. It's just going to be a little. It's just not going to be as close to my bedroom.
But Bruce, you want to tell us a little bit about your items? Describe them and tell us what you found.
And
so
how
far.
many?
Right now, I have 7 haunted artifacts so far.
Oh,
and
wow.
what it is I come across a paranormal investigator who was retiring. He didn't want this stuff anymore. Plus, he still had a collection, you know, a big collection of haunted things that he was going to hold on to. So he let me have a few things. One of the big ticket items was what he dubbed the crybaby cradle. This cradle dates back to 1903, and the story behind this cradle is there was a 1-month-old baby that was left home with his 6-year-old brother for just a few minutes while the mother stepped out to do something and was going to come back. Well, I guess the baby had started crying, and the older brother couldn't get him to stop crying, so he stomped his baby brother to death.
Oh, my God.
In the cradle. And now the cradle rocks by itself. You'll see orbs flying around it.
Wow.
Sometimes you'll get EVPs of a baby crying. Mm-hmm. With, you know, the usual stuff that you would imagine when it comes to an infant's passing.
Now, I have a question. These things that you got from the paranormal investigator, which you're also a paranormal investigator, were these things that, like, he encountered during an investigation and kind of took custody of, like, the...
What it is these are things that, when he was doing investigations, people knew that these items were haunted, and they wanted them out of their house.
Okay.
And...
kind of like that. What's the couple's name?
The Warners.
Yes. Yeah, like they used to do.
Right. And also Zach Bagans does.
Right.
He takes people's stuff now too for his museum. But so we have Crybaby Cradle. Another one was he actually had a Dybbuk box. It's not like the Dybbuk box from the movie.
Right.
You know,
right.
Not the
There's
old
a lot of them out there.
The wine glass, but yeah, it was one that somebody that I guess these kids had acquired from the dark web, and they had it in their house, and they had opened it.
Oh no!
And he, you know, a bunch of stuff was going on in their house. Apparently, he had a couple mediums that friends that he had reseal the box, you know, do the whole little ceremony again with the candle wax,
right,
to supposedly trap the spirit back in there. And the spirit that haunts this thing is a demon that calls itself Seven. So it's basically like a legion.
Well, that's lovely.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
So yeah, that's in my house. And then, the other one was there's a haunted doll named Elsie, which people, she doesn't like to be handled. The deal with Elsie is people who handle her without her permission, or and don't handle her delicately. She seems to make them sick. People have claimed to see shadow figures in their house. They have been, touched, scratched, had things pulled off the walls.
Oh my God.
So how does one know if Elsie gives permission?
Well, the guy that I acquired from the paranormal investigator, he had actually done Ouija board sessions with her, and which she would she would be somewhat responsive until you started asking her questions about how she died, and it would make her upset, and then things would get violent or malevolent. So
sounds like that entity over at Ann's house in Asheville.
Yeah.
When she paints the room the wrong color, he
Right.
gets upset and breaks things.
Yeah, and Elsie's not the only haunted doll I have. I have another one named Cowgirl Rebecca, and it's one of those old school.
That's the one I like. Like, she's actually a pretty doll.
But she's made to look exactly like her owner.
You've seen these dolls?
She's
I've seen a few pictures of some
I
of
sent
the
her some
stuff.
pictures,
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I start to say, we ain't going over there and
Rebecca
got
was the Rebecca doll was made to look like the little girl who used to own her, and the deal was
I didn't know that.
And what the deal was with Rebecca, the girl that owned Rebecca and her dad used to live in Texas.
Okay.
He had a horse ranch and cattle ranch out there, and she loved dolls. So he bought her these dolls, and he got her this doll that looked like her because it was like her birthday gift or whatever. And this anyway, she had the doll for several years, and one day she went out to ride horses with her dad, and she got kicked off the horse, and she fell and she broke her neck and died. And that doll was her favorite thing in the world. So she's attached to the doll. And Rebecca, according to the guy I talked to, he's done spirit box sessions.
So why would this guy want to give that doll up if it belonged to his beloved child? And
when he passed away, there was no one to inherit the estate.
All right.
And Rebecca was
Now that
sold.
makes sense.
The doll was sold off as part of the estate sale.
Yeah, that makes
because there was about 100 dolls in the estate sale. But that was,
The one she was attached to.
Yeah. And it was made to look just like her.
Yeah.
So, it was one of those kinds of things. And
I can imagine the ghost would become somewhat capricious because it's not with her family anymore. And I don't know.
And like I said, the paranormal investigator who had the doll, he'd done Ouija board and spirit box sessions with that doll. And the Rebecca doll seems to respond more, give good answers, would seem kind of playful, has a foul mouth though, apparently. The deal was like, I can't remember. I'll have to ask him again. There was something that if you ask her about her dad, she gets really upset. That's what it was.
I can see that.
Well, why? Why would you see that?
Well, because her father has now passed away.
Right.
She's attached to this doll.
And she can't go to
She
wherever his
probably
father is?
can't figure out how to unattach herself at this point.
Oh, okay.
And she's just separated from family and has memory of her father, but can't get to her father.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
And
that one probably actually has the best chance of
resolving it.
Yeah, freeing the spirit there.
Yeah. And then let's see. I have a clock that is
I saw that episode on Twilight Zone.
it's a mantle clock. It belonged to this man named Terry, and he died at 10:08 a.m. of a heart attack. And the mantle clock stopped exactly 10:08 when he passed away. This clock was a gift to him from his father, and his father handmade it for him.
Wow.
And he had it for 50 some years. It's real old. And the clock stopped when he passed away. he didn't have any family, and
Candace, you'll see this one tonight on Twice.
The exact same thing happened with my grandmother. She had a mantle clock, and she passed away, oddly enough, 10:08 a.m., and the clock stopped on the dot. I now have the clock. I haven't wound that clock up in years, and at least once a year, it'll just randomly start chiming.
This one, this one.
So
Wow.
creepy. Wow.
It supposedly, like, you can't get it to leave the 10:08. It's kind of busted, but it supposedly there's been a few times where it has chimed with nothing in it, but.
Have you heard it chime?
No, but the paranormal investigator that I acquired it from, though, he has spoken to Terry through EVP Spirit Box sessions, and Terry's attached to that. So
when are we going to do some?
yeah, as soon as I can get it all set back up with the cameras.
Yeah.
I also have a music box that belonged to an old lady, and it was her favorite thing in the whole world. And when she passed away, her husband was trying to give it to their kids. Their kids didn't want it because it winds up and it plays music by itself.
I have one that does that as well.
Yeah, I've actually witnessed this because actually the third day I had it, it was still in my garage. I hadn't even brought it into my house yet. And I went to go get something out of my car at 10, 11 o'clock at night. And I could hear a ding, ding, ding.
Oh, my God.
I'm like, what in the hell was that?
You're creep tolerance.
And I turn and I see the little, it's like the Precious Memories kids. It's got the Precious Memory boy and girl. And I just see it starting to turn. And I was like, oh, wow. So that was pretty cool.
We need a creep meter, and Bruce's level is way up here. He can tolerate a lot of creep factor.
I've witnessed a lot of creep factor, though, being a paranormal investigator. So it's kind of like, after a while, you just kind of, you just let it go.
You do. I mean, nothing really scares me anymore. I say that, knock on wood, because then something will say, oh, yeah, you want to bet?
But yeah,
I don't get scared, but I don't open the door and stand there and watch for it to come in either.
So that's 4 of the 7. So another item I acquired. This one I did not get from the paranormal investigator. This is something that a lady actually asked me to take out of her house because she did not want it, and it was a Foot Locker that belonged to an Iraqi
military, right?
He was an army, and he was he was in the army, and he was deployed to Iraq, and he had been killed while he was over there, and his spirit's attached to his Foot Locker. Oh. And the lady who had it, she was a young lady. She was probably 24, 25. And her husband, they bought it from Goodwill right outside Fort Bragg of the base. And
did they sell that on? What were they selling that on?
She had it on Facebook Marketplace, and she was trying to sell it for $20. But when I went there, she's like, "Just get it out of my house."
Saves you $20. Anyway,
yeah.
Right?
So she said as soon as she brought that Foot Locker into her house, because her husband was in the army, he was going to use it. She said stuff started getting knocked around in her house, like she's having legitimate poltergeist activity.
Oh my God!
And she said it wasn't all the time. But she said it was just weird. It'd be sometimes it'd be in the middle of the day, you'd see a shadow figure standing in her living room. Or, sometimes she'd get this weird feeling like some standing behind her. And so she had a bunch of those kinds of experiences with the Foot Locker.
So you had any problems with the Foot Locker?
With the Foot Locker? No, I mean,
is it in your house or out in the garage?
The Foot Locker's in the garage just because of the sheer amount of room it takes up right now. But I mean, I'm going to move everything back upstairs. Like I said, I got everything out of the house because my family, when they were here for Christmas, didn't want to be anywhere near that stuff. And the fact that I'm already living in a haunted house as it is.
So
my activity
told
was
your family about this?
Oh yeah, well, kind of hard. How am I going to deny it when it's on my Facebook page? My mom's like, I know you don't have that crap in the house when we're going to be there next week, right?
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, My grandma's 89 years old, man. I'm not trying to drive her to an earlier grave, scare her to death.
She'll be attached to something in your house there for a long.
Let's see. So I had those. Let's see. I said the music box, the mantle clock, the crybaby cradle, and
the doll,
the two dolls, and the Foot Locker. I'm forgetting. And I already mentioned the Dybbuk box. So yeah, that's everything. Mm-hmm. That's the haunted artifact collection as of right now.
Wow.
So are we going to move that into your future room?
My attic space.
Right.
Yeah.
And we're going to put a steel door up and bad padlocks on it.
Well, you know what I had to do to keep the activity like to a minimum is when I put it out in my garage, the bag of rock salt that I usually put in my my filtration system for my water. I had to put a ring of rock salt around that stuff.
Yeah. Wow. Oh my God.
And when I did that, it's
Bruce's house.
and what made it even worse is when I did the salt, like something freaked out because I started hearing like, I'm not kidding you, like later on that night I could hear something like banging noises coming from my garage, and I'm just like, I'm not gonna even open the door to acknowledge it.
I've got another one for Bruce's house.
Yeah. Well, I've already told you about remember the food delivery driver who keeps seeing a little boy in the window.
I thought it was two separate ones.
Yeah, it was two separate ones. But I already told you about that. So, yeah.
This is no lie. When I'm over around your house, every once in a while, I'll pull in your driveway and sit there and just look at that window because I want to see this little boy looking back at it.
Same here. And I keep wondering if maybe it was like a reflection playing tricks on this guy. But he was in the middle of the day, and like he described this kid to a T. So I'm like,
I was over at your house, and you were like, "Do you feel anything?" And I kept telling you, "I see an old lady walking around your front hallway," and like. I wonder if maybe the little boy was from the cemetery.
Yeah.
Well, we've got a episode. If you go back to look at our YouTube channel, where Bruce and I did a
investigation at
his house. In my house.
And we saw little entities running around.
How old is your house?
It's not that old.
Since 97.
What?
Yeah,
but
he backs up to a graveyard.
Like,
I got a graveyard 50
the
feet
cemetery's
from my back
not
door.
even to that door. I mean, it's like right there.
I've told her, I found out when I moved into my house 10 years ago that apparently there used to be a graveyard. It was the old Salem Visitors Graveyard.
Right.
And it was where what is now the old courthouse. Apparently there was a courthouse before that courthouse. And so they dug up this graveyard when they built the old courthouse, and they tried to find the families of the people who were there, but most of them were unnamed travelers anyway, so they couldn't find them. And they dug up this dirt and moved it to various neighborhoods. There's some of it in Ardmore. There's some of it in Oak Crest, where I live off of Polo. It's all over Winston. And apparently the previous owners of my home used to find bone chips in the yard when he would mow the yard. It would kick up human bone chips. Yeah.
That's scary.
I want to take a metal
Is there some
detector.
kind of law against that? I mean,
but I
there
just
is
My
now.
house was built back in the 30s, so they did this in the 20s. So
Okay.
I'm sure.
I was gonna say I had a similar thing happen to me. Like one of the first my first paranormal experiences when I lived in that townhouse outside of Fort Campbell. It's like they moved a whole cemetery 4 miles down the road to build these townhouses outside of Post for all the soldiers and their families, and me and everybody in our cul-de-sac in this had activity in our houses. Like you'd hear running up and down the stairs in the middle of the day when no one's there, and we had all kinds of activity in that house. And it's
Wow.
wow, that's so. Is that all that you purchased so far?
Well, I only purchased like 2 of those items. Everything else was free.
Yeah,
Please take it.
I'd give you my stuff too. Hey, we got a sucker over here.
I've got a music box you can have.
Yeah.
Picked it up at an antique shop in Oklahoma, and you are welcome to it.
Well, he can add it to his museum.
Yeah.
We're going to start
Have you-
charging to go to Bruce's house.
I know,
Stand in
right?
line to
We
see the
should.
ghost.
Have you had like increased activity
Yes.
since you brought this stuff in?
Yes. Yes, yes, and more yes.
Yeah.
Do we need to do it?
Do we need a young priest and an old priest?
Do we need to get more cameras to put in your house?
I don't know, man.
Put on you while you're sleeping, but then you're not going to want to know.
Like, I mean, I'm like, when the stuff was out in my garage, I was constantly hearing noises in the garage. When it was in my attic, you know, in that little where I was going to build the bonus room, I heard walking upstairs all the time. Sometimes I'd hear like what would sound like the little closet door that goes into that little attic room open and close. Oh
my God.
I've heard whispering in rooms where, you know, obviously I'm the only one in the house. So if there's a room that I'm not in and I'm hearing voices coming from it,
Well,
wow.
I was over at his house one time. I was sitting at the kitchen table, and when you're sitting at the kitchen table, you can see into its den area, and there's also a restroom. I guess a guest bathroom. It's right off to the right from where I was sitting, and I could see shadows moving over there all the time. I kept asking Bruce. I said, "Is there cars coming by? Is there any?" There's no way that
I see that all the time, all day long. It looks like something is either walking into my laundry room or into that bathroom.
Yeah, and you could see it plain as day. The shadows going in there.
And then, like in my sometimes in my bedroom, the master bath, like in my bedroom, like, you know how I can see into it from where I sit on the couch,
right,
facing the TV. I'll see shadow figures go like into my master bathroom from where I'm, you know, how I sit on that couch facing.
Right.
I can constantly see shadow figures going in, and I even have like one of those like motion activated night lights in the bathroom. That thing goes off by itself.
I remember
all the time.
My gosh.
I was sitting there with you one night, and you were like, "Yeah, that happens."
I was like, "Yeah, that happens at least 4 or 5 times a night."
Right.
And
like
God.
I said, I even got up and went and looked at the front of the house because I'm saying, "Where is this light coming through?"
Yeah.
And there's just, from what I'm looking at and what I'm seeing, no way.
No way.
It wasn't a car light. It wasn't a vehicle.
I mean, I've seen stuff inside his house.
Yeah.
Not that it would surprise you. I mean,
Well, like even before I even bought this house, when the realtor first showed me the house, I actually saw like a vapor, like a mist in broad daylight. Like I was walking from where the dining room, my office area is, into the kitchen. It looked like there was like this mist standing right between my refrigerator and where the dishwasher was. And it just kind of vanished. I didn't really think anything of it at first, but yeah, I mean, I should have. I mean, I got a graveyard 40 feet from my back door.
I don't know. I mean, who better to live in a paranormal house than a paranormal investigator?
Well, that's true.
At least you're not absolutely terrified all the time.
Yeah.
Well, Bruce and I even went out in the graveyard, but we never really found anything in that graveyard.
Is it an old graveyard or is it
still
it's
being
current? Populated?
Yeah.
It's current. And see, the thing is they're actually building and adding on to that graveyard. Oh.
See, my theory,
and I think that's been like kicking up a lot of activity lately too.
Right.
My theory is that they are recent, and I don't know, I don't have a medium proof for this at all, but I just think that they're recently deceased and just kind of like, oh, I'm dead now, and kind of stumbling around the neighborhood.
Well, see, and that's kind of how it was when we went to the Wagner's house. They got that huge cemetery
that was bizarre.
over there. And that entire neighborhood, everybody that lives in there has activity.
Yeah,
we went in the backyard, and Daryl's like, well, do you feel anything here? And I turned my head, and I swear to God, I saw like 20 or 30 dead people.
Oh, my God.
Just standing there like, what are you guys doing?
And my parents' house, is 100 years old this year. And there was actually in the 60s, there was a woman murdered in the bathtub downstairs in the house. And the creepiest stuff used to happen. I remember when I was really little, it stopped by the time I was maybe 7 or 8. But piano used to play on its own. TVs would come on, lights would come on. The stove turned itself on one time.
I never liked being in that house by myself.
Really?
Where was this located?
It's on Renolda Road.
It's a beautiful house.
Right, Renolda and Polo. It was the old Heinz family that owned Heinz Shoes. They originally built it in 1920. or 1919 is when they started. That's what the stone says, at least.
Now, Reynolda Road, isn't that where that guy blew himself up and was in a van with his kids?
Oh, yeah, it was Town and Country.
Yes.
Yeah.
We used to drive around there
all the time.
in high school.
Yeah, that's about a mile away from where I grew up.
Yeah, because one of my friends was involved in that investigation.
Really?
And,
yeah, that was
his,
pretty, that was traumatic and big news.
Mm-hmm. You know, it was real funny because he says, this is the weirdest thing. It was sun shining and everything. This guy blows himself up, kills his kids, his whole 9 yards. He says it came up a thunderstorm and a flashing rain, and then the sun came right back out like the devil must have took him, and then everybody else is going
like it's over now. Yeah,
I don't know. I think that's a Reynolda Road phenomenon personally, because I've seen that happen quite a bit.
Oh, the thunderstorms. Okay.
Yeah, I've actually seen it rain on one side of the driveway and not the other.
Oh, okay.
So it's a Reynolda Road phenomenon.
But I thought it was neat to hear the story.
Yeah.
And then, so that's Bruce's holidays.
Yeah.
Now,
Merry Christmas.
Basically being the collector of all things.
now
undead,
Candace said she knows about her animals coming back to her, right?
Yeah, I have had two. My very first dog is an adult who is sort of my little soul dog, I guess. You could call him Baxter. Well, his name was Baxter, so yes, call him Baxter by all means.
We could call him Baxter. No problem.
He passed away in 2004, and I actually moved from the apartment I was living in at the time to a house because it was just too much for me.
Right.
And I saw him in my kitchen, or at least I thought I saw him in my kitchen on numerous occasions. And I had a party one night, and two friends pulled me to my bedroom and said, "I hope you don't think I'm crazy, but I just saw Baxter in your kitchen." And so I had two other people confirm that, that I had in fact seen the dog because they saw him too. And he was just running back and forth in the kitchen. And
also,
then
it makes you feel better that you don't think you're crazy.
Yeah, it does. It does. And then, more recently, my basset hound Roscoe, sorry. He passed away a couple of years ago, and I have seen him twice in my house. And as crazy as it may sound, I feel him there all the time, but I have seen him twice in my house. My brother saw him once.
Now, when your animals pass away, how do you dispose of their
Well,
carcass?
both of these guys were cremated, so
Okay,
yeah.
all right.
Mm-hmm. So you,
But I do
actually
keep their
you have
ashes. I have the
in there.
ashes on the mantle like it's a centerpiece or something.
Well, Apollo's downstairs in a box.
Yeah.
I say, and what amazes me is she's the second person we've talked to besides the gentleman from the Monster Hop, the Goblin Dash, or
Yeah,
Russian
right,
guy.
right,
Yeah.
right.
yeah,
Like
the Russian guy that saw his dog, grandmother's dog, Leica. I've noticed that when it comes to pets, everyone has claimed that that they've seen their dogs, but no one has ever seen a cat. Like a dead
I
cat.
haven't seen a cat. I have felt her purring on my pillow kind of thing.
And see, and
But we were really
I've always
close.
heard weird things like
It's because cats
when-
have no souls.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I was gonna say. That's what I've heard. I've actually heard that cats don't have souls.
They're like gingers.
because they're believed it to be like half in, half out, like of the world of the living, and the dead.
Yeah.
You've met Bob then, right?
Yeah.
That's the way he is downstairs.
Well, I did. I had a cat that she was a Maine Coon. She was 17, and we had to
Big
do.
furball right there, Maine Coon.
Well, she was a small Maine Coon. She was only, I think, 12 pounds, which is
only
very small.
That is small.
I have a 22.5-pound Maine Coon now in California, and she almost bit the dust by escaping and getting attacked. But in between that, we had another cat that did get eaten by a coyote because a roommate left a door open, and I heard the whole thing happen. It was awful. But so we were moving out of that house in another week, and so it was really weird timing, and it felt like leaving her behind. And I kept telling my ex-husband, because we were splitting up. He was going one direction, I was coming back to North Carolina, and I was like, we've got to make sure we take her soul with us. I know that sounds crazy, but I was like, I feel her and I want to make sure she goes with us. And then I just kept feeling like she was still at the house. So I actually made him take a trip all the way back to our old house. And I was like, go retrieve her soul, please.
Okay.
So,
now you've got my attention. How do you retrieve a soul?
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask.
I told him just go and ask her to come with you. Like, I don't think she realizes we're not there anymore. So you just need to tell her, Sabrina, it's Daddy, come with me. So.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. How else do you retrieve a soul?
I don't know. I'm asking you that question.
To me. It felt right. It felt like
So it made you feel better.
Box and
Yeah. No, that's how you lose a soul.
So when the cat's in the box, is it dead or is it alive?
Oh, Lord. Cat's in the box.
Schrodinger's cat.
Okay. So,
Yeah.
other than your animals and your music box, what other strange things?
the clock, the music box. There's actually a house. I have a friend whose husband works at a Mexican restaurant in Pilot Mountain, and so oftentimes I will ride with her to go pick him up in the evenings just to get out. And there is this old farmhouse, and I wish I could tell you the road, but I don't know it because I don't live in Stokes County. But every single time that we have gone by it, I have seen a woman in the upstairs window. And I finally got around to telling Vera, I said, I feel sorry for that old lady. And she said, what are you talking about? And I said, the old lady lives in that farmhouse back there. And I said, she's always looking out the window. It just looks so, sad and pitiful. And she said, Candace, no one's lived in that house for 40 years. What are you talking about?
Oh, my God.
And I said, I swear to God, every time we come past this house, that woman's standing there looking out the window. I mean, I've seen her a dozen times at least. And so I'm in tune to things like that. I try really hard. I don't want to see it.
Yeah.
I don't want to see anything, but I feel it whether I want to see it or not.
Right. And I think we've discussed this a lot in the fact that I think everybody sees something. Mm-hmm. It's just that some people are not tuned into it. Mm-hmm. And they don't know how to interpret what they see.
Right.
Or they want to write it off as a shadow. They want to write it off as something other than what they really see. Mm-hmm. So, it takes a person to be tuned into this, and you've got to believe a little bit, in what's out there, and you got to say, there's a lot of stuff out there we can't explain.
Right.
And if we accept that, then we can open our eyes and see a lot more.
And I
what's
think
going
we need
on.
to believe what we see too. Like, not just like a lot of people will say,
dismiss it.
I saw my grandma, but it couldn't have been my grandma. She's dead.
Right.
Mm-hmm. But you've got to say, no, that was her. She's acknowledging that, she still loves me or whatever it feels, that emotion you have, and it's real.
Yeah, it is real.
Right.
And my grandmother had the same gift. My mom apparently had it, and she said that she worked very hard to try to get past it. And it was very strong in me when I was younger. When I was little, I used to see things.
Right.
And I remember closing my eyes really tight at night and saying, no, I don't want to see this. Go away. I don't want to see this. And I sort of grew out of it for a little bit, and then as I'm getting older, it's starting to come back. I've always been I've always been an empath, but the visions and the other things are starting to come back now.
Right. And I wish there was more people like you that would admit to it, because everybody says, I don't want to say that. People are going to think I'm crazy.
I probably am, so I don't care.
I
don't care. People think I'm crazy. That's fine.
Yeah, I had a buddy who was like when we were in the Army together, he was diagnosed with terminal cancer. Mm-hmm. And this was after my first deployment. They only gave him 6 months to live. And he started seeing a lot of stuff. Mm-hmm. I guess as, he was.
I think his vision got clearer.
Yeah. Well, as he started to, time went on and he's getting closer to his own death, he was seeing more and more beyond the veil.
Yeah,
and
they say the veil gets thin.
And he actually, he started seeing stuff that was scaring him to the point where he went to his priest at, the church that he went to, and he basically prayed to not see those things. And he said it took a couple times, but after a few prayer sessions with his priest and stuff, he said that he finally quit seeing some of that stuff. And,
whatever he gives
until
people
he passed
peace.
away,
Some people, they get peace from seeing those things. And then if it bothers some people, then
Well, he was describing scary things.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
depends. It depends on the entity, the spirit of the
does.
entity. If it's angry, it bothers me. If it's if there's any anger or evilness or addiction is a really heavy spirit that I pick up on, and it's always an angry spirit, and that bothers me immensely. I can walk into a home and tell you if an alcoholic or an addict or somebody has lived there and died because it's still there.
It stands out.
yeah.
The it's my brother. Just before he passed away, he had terminal cancer, and I just noticed he started reading a lot of books on afterlife and before life, and I introduced him to Dr. Tucker, and so he got into that. But I believe we're more open. We don't want to leave this earth thinking this is it, and I don't believe this is it. So it's good to research that and go out there. Now, Amanda, during the holidays, you did some more research on Old Salisbury Road. Do you want to talk a little bit about that before we?
Yeah, I can talk a little bit about that. This is kind of an ongoing investigation that it started with, what's her name? Sherry.
Sherry.
They call it the Old Salisbury Roadhouse. And if you look on our YouTube, there's a couple of videos of interviewing Sherry and where Bruce and Daryl have gone and done investigations there. They've had a lot of activity. And then Daryl said, hey, can you see if there's other stuff going on Old Salisbury Road and in that area? And the depth of stuff going on in that area is insane. I can tell you of 2 other houses with significant ghost activity, one with very negative activity, one just seeing past residents of a very old house that was built in the early 1800s. And that house is, I can't think of the name of it, Snyder. The Snyder house was, it's on the historic registry. And they have, it's hard to get a lot of history of that house because it's still family owned. But the only information out there is that, yeah, they have seen like grandmothers and past residents of the house there. The house that I lived in, is on West Clemensville, which is around the corner from Old Salisbury. It's practically on Old Salisbury Road. And Candace has been in that house.
That house, I spent spent several nights in that house, but there were a couple of nights in particular that her sister went in there, so I stayed in her sister's room, and both times there was a man standing at the foot of the bed watching me all night. Creeped me out.
See, I don't think you told me that.
Yeah, I told you that, but I don't think you listened.
Probably not at the time, because I didn't believe in this stuff back then. I was very logical. Still am.
I told Brooke about it, and Brooke said that she
Brooke
knew who I was talking
about. Brooke has seen 3 people on a regular basis. Brooke is my sister.
Right, and it's kind of funny because Brooke now won't talk about this.
Right, she won't talk about it at all.
You wouldn't talk about it back then. Now you talk about it, and she, it's just like y'all reversed roles here.
For real, we totally have. It's the funny thing. And our youngest sister, who's 10 years younger, me and Brooke are pretty close in age. Our youngest sister, Kelly, I don't know. My mom is so strange. The house was very large and difficult to heat. So my mom's solution was to put blankets over the stairway so that we could keep the downstairs warm and the upstairs cold. I don't know, Mom. And so Kelly was coming down the stairs, and literally all you had to do was just push the blanket to the side and walk down the stairs. But for some reason, all of the blankets wrapped around her. She ended up falling down half the stairs and was screaming. And when my dad came and got her untangled, she had scratches all over her body, like all over her torso, stomach, back, everything. And my dad was like, "What happened?" And she was literally encircled in blankets, so it's not like she snagged herself on anything. And she's like, "I don't know, I'm terrified." And she wouldn't go back upstairs the rest of the night. But she said lots of things happened in that house. Now, 2 houses down from that house, there was a murder-suicide. A lady killed her entire family, her husband and 2 children, and then hung herself. And that house is still standing. It has not sold since the murder-suicides in 2004. So that house is still there. I have not gone back to look at that one yet, but I do want to at least go get some photos of that one.
Was that the house Then we sink.
No.
Okay.
No.
Well, you also had the
I know which one you mean.
the guy that supposedly was directed by the devil or something to kill people.
I was going to say there was Old Salisbury Road
Yes,
has a lot of
that's
murder
the
activity.
Other
on that
end
road.
of Old Salisbury Road, near Sherry's house, about 2 city blocks from Sherry's house.
I don't know where that
Michael
moped-
Hayes.
Yeah, Michael Hayes is the instant. But I don't know where that moped shop was located.
I
but,
do know exactly.
okay.
It's right when you come to the road. Breakfast time is right there, and there's just some sheds for sale across the road. There used to be a building there.
Well, you said there's like a iron core that runs through the earth right there.
There is bedrock.
Bedrock.
And I have not fully investigated what that even means.
Bedrock, is that a good conductor?
Well, yeah, the quartz,
There's
because there's quartz in it.
So if ley
That's
lines
another
is
thing
near
about
there,
my
then
house. It's full of quartz veins.
Yeah, that makes sense. Because there was a quarry there that these stone houses that are on the historic registry, there's a couple of stone houses I found out. And they were built from that quarry, as well as all of the courthouses and buildings downtown that were built out of granite. They all came from this one quarry. The quarry has been filled in, and now there's a development over top of it.
really?
Yes.
I
Where
talked
was
to
the
my
current
dad about that.
quarry
He
at?
said there were 3 quarries out there originally. That there were like 3 or 4 of them.
This
They've all
one
been filled in.
is, it's right at West Clemensville and Old Salisbury, but it's set back into the woods. Well, it used to be woods when I was a kid. It's not woods anymore. Now there's a development there. Yeah. It used to be like I used to go in the woods, and we had this thing where we were finding tortoises and keeping them as pets for a while. And we would go in the woods and find a tortoise. And yeah, so those woods were where the quarry was,
Okay.
where I sourced my tortoise.
Tortoise sourcing.
Okay, that's another episode.
Yeah. But we do need to do like a whole kind of like a roving investigation of that whole area, because it's a fascinating area.
Yeah.
From West Clemensville to 150. If anybody's from Winston-Salem.
From like the Ebert Road area up to, say, Hickory Tree Road.
Right. I know where the area is.
You
Yeah.
get right on it.
Yeah, I don't know how
I was like, you get right on it.
Whenever the weather will cooperate. And then I don't like these sunny days in the middle of winter.
Right.
Not down with it.
I guess our next one that we've been planning forever and still haven't done is the hospital or the.
Yes, we need to get to the hospital, which should be back open after the holidays.
Which hospital?
Mister, I'll come help you on the 14th.
Oh, I can't remember the name
Yeah,
of
that
it.
didn't work.
It looks like a house, but it had been a doctor's home, and then he practiced in the basement.
Oh, that's not creepy.
And-
Only for
right.
8 years, and then he passed away.
Yeah. And supposedly it's haunted, and they let you come into their house and do investigations.
Yeah, it's kind of cool because even in the pictures you can see orbs, like throughout all the pictures that they took.
Now that's one thing you mentioned, orbs. That's another little experience that I've had. My dad's mother killed herself, and every time that I go up to the farm, if I'm anywhere near a body of water, first off, there's always going to be orbs. But the cherry tree where she shot herself, there's always orbs in my pictures around that cherry tree.
Now, where's this farm located?
Ash County, West Jefferson.
West Jefferson.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty up there. It's really pretty.
Mm-hmm. But there's a lot of activity up there. A lot of just strange things, strange goings on.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's a summertime. adventure.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay.
But we've got a lot coming up. We've got an interview with a UFO specialist, I guess he kind of is. He has a UFO channel and Twitter and all that, and we're going to try to get an interview with him here in a week, and we're going to bring Ann back on the show as soon as her mother is available to also do the podcast with her. And they're the ones who have been videoing a lot
With
of
the
orbs.
security cameras,
yeah.
Because Ann's mother had seen a lot more than she had.
She had seen some actual entities and apparitions. So I'd love to talk to her, see what she's got to offer. Let's see what else we got coming up. Hospital thing, and
Well, there's quite a few things that we're going to be doing, and we'll be covering that as we go along.
Yeah.
But I want to thank everybody tonight. I've had a great
It's a
time
fun
here
chit
tonight.
chat podcast.
Yeah. So, Candace, you're welcome back anytime.
Thank you.
You've got an open door policy here.
Wonderful.
So,
I knew you would love it.
We'll have you back, and so if anybody else, if we're finished, we're going to be out of here for tonight, and we will see you again and talk to you next week.
All right.
That's all, folks.
Good night from Mothman Podcast.
And good night from Mothman Podcast. We hope you enjoyed tonight's episode.